Few things can suddenly turn a school upside down like a tragic student death. Although the rates of tragic student deaths are low, when it does occur, the impact can shake the school's foundations. And the impact can last for months if not longer. Having communicated several student deaths throughout the years, we decided to make this video to advise viewers of what they should do with the media if a student dies tragically. 2 deaths we dealt with were due to family massacres, and these were separate incidents about a year apart. But ultimately, making a video on that topic was backburnered due to more pressing projects, and because of the rarity of such deaths. That decision changed when we learned through a Google alert that a student at a school we represent died of COVID-19. But knowing what to do when a student dies tragically does not come naturally for many school officials. Colleges do not adequately prepare future school leaders to deal with the media in such circumstances. The school I mentioned earlier is located in one of the highest crime-ridden neighborhoods within its city. Over the years, school officials have had to deal with a number of misfortunes. Fortunately, the principal had as much street smarts as he had academic qualifications, and so he knew what had to be done. But that's not always the case. In fact, it's hardly ever the case. It is understandable that many school officials do not know what to do when tragedy strikes a student. We have learned a lot about human nature and leadership psychology over the years as we served schools. We have seen how responses vary, ranging from the aforementioned COVID death response to another occurrence that was the polar opposite. In that situation, the school we represented was one of the largest of its kind in the state it is located. 2 well-liked students died in a murder-suicide. The media called us before the school contacted us, which was odd, but we didn't read into it because in a catastrophe this big, mistakes can be made, and actions can get dropped. But here's where things really got strange. We had to call the school leadership because the media wanted to include anything the school might want to share in a news report, such as how well-liked the students were, and if counseling would be available for students and staff who needed those services. School leadership refused to speak to the media. Instead, an administrator whipped up a generic letter with one of the victims' names misspelled. We ultimately got permission to provide a reporter a copy of the corrected letter, but making that happen was not easy. Despite our counsel regarding communicating with the media, the school leadership responded with an icy directive that said, "Tell the press we will let the police conduct the investigation." The reporter was not seeking information from school officials about the investigation. She was one of the region's top crime reporters, and was too experienced to make such a frivolous request. Rather, the reporter was interested in obtaining a thoughtful quote from school leadership about the deceased students. This leader's seemingly hostile response and uncaring demeanor is one scenario we hope to steer school leaders from through this video. School officials who refuse to speak to the press because they think that would disrespect the deceased, could come across as hostile and uncaring. School leaders who have access to a media response plan before tragedy strikes will be able to make better decisions regarding media interviews, and advance preparation will go a long way in keeping school leaders from appearing hostile and uncaring. Losing a student to a tragedy can set your school spinning. It can triple your workload over several days as you bring together school counselors and mental health professionals to provide counseling for students and staff, develop a staff and parent letter, convene an emergency meeting with faculty and support staff, and cooperate with investigating authorities. On top of all that, as a leader of a public school or a public-facing institution, you need to work with the media. It's a moral obligation. That alone can consume many hours. The best way to manage the media is to work with the press as simultaneously as possible. We will look at the best way to do that in a moment. When addressing a tragic student death, school leaders need to communicate to several audiences. The primary audience is internal, that is, students, families, and staff. All else is secondary. Unlike what our school leader above believed, a media professional is not going to ask school leaders about the case itself. They take those questions up with law enforcement. Rather, the media wants to partner with school officials to get the school's message out to the wider public. Reporters want to know the following. Media will ask school officials to verify the grade the student was in. Reporters will want a comment from school leadership about the deceased student. They want to provide school officials the opportunity to say something kind about the student, such as, he or she was well liked by his or her classmates, was on the path to a successful future, and that will be missed by many. Reporters almost always ask if the school will be providing counseling services for students and staff who need help processing the tragedy. They will also ask if school officials are aware of any fundraisers for the victim's family, such as a GoFundMe campaign, or, they may ask you to help confirm that a fundraiser they noticed online is authentic, so they can help publicize the campaign. The media may also ask you for a photo of the student. And, the media will ask information about funeral services if they have been unsuccessful in contacting the family. The answer to those questions should be found in the staff and family letters school leadership distributes. And so, as you finalize staff and family letters, format the same letter into a statement with your communication directors or public relations agencies' contact information at the top. Post the letter on your school's website and Facebook page, because a good reporter will likely do an online search before calling or emailing. You will save yourself a tremendous amount of time by posting the school's statement about the tragic loss of the student. Deciding whether to communicate with the media should not be left to how the school leader feels at the moment. Emotions can cause us to make decisions we will later regret. Instead, the school should establish a policy in advance of how to manage the media in the event a student dies tragically. After speaking with the victim's family, you might opt to proactively contact the media. The more heart-wrenching the case, the more likely that most area media will contact you. The impact a tragic student death will have on your schedule cannot be overstated. But you still need to wrap up board packets, file reports with the State Department of Education, return parent calls, and complete the myriad of other responsibilities you had before the tragedy occurred. While some schools opt to prepare an if queried statement, schools located in larger media markets should consider proactive media engagement. Proactive media engagement means that, school communications professionals, or the school's public relations agency will distribute the official statement to the school's local or regional media list. Whether the school leader or a spokesperson talks to the press about a student tragedy should be established in advance by policy, not by the emotions or the workload of the moment. If a school has established to provide in-person interviews, have the school's communication professionals arrange a media briefing for a certain time that will both work with the school leader or spokesperson's schedules and the media deadline needs. By posting the statement about the tragedy on the school website and Facebook page, proactively distributing a media statement, and scheduling a media briefing, you will save yourself many hours as opposed to addressing inquiries as they arrive. Of course, there is always one station that did not see the statement, or could not attend the press briefing due to a conflicting assignment. Typically, it's best to accommodate the request. While that will involve time you had not planned for, overall, you will have saved far more time by addressing the majority of press at the scheduled briefing. If the student's death was the result of something that could happen again to anyone, school leaders should also communicate what they are doing to protect the school community. For example, if a student died because of COVID-19, students, staff, and families need to be informed what the school is doing to keep the virus out of the building. Another example based on a case we managed. If a student was attacked nearby and the killer remains at large, school leaders need to lay out what additional security measures are in place to keep students and staff safe while on school property. A charter school we serve lost a very young student to horrific family violence. Most of the students were local to the school. That is, they lived within a few blocks from the school. And so, the school consists of a fairly tight-knit close community of families. After losing the student to violence, school officials scheduled a memorial service during the school day. We recommended inviting the media to the ceremony where they could get footage of the school community celebrating the deceased student's life and sending off balloons in his honor. The media produced a touching primetime news feature. To this day, the school still has that news report posted on its website in honor of the deceased student. Hopefully your school will never experience the loss of a student or staff member to violence. Regardless, it is as imperative for schools to plan responses to such tragic events as it is to be prepared to respond to an active shooter. Prepare a media response plan for current and future school leaders to consult. The plan should include steps to take under various scenarios, such as what to do in the event school officials first learn of the tragedy from the media. That scenario alone could be another video, but your school's communication staff or public relations agency should be able to navigate you through such planning. Although losing a student or staff member to tragedy is a rare occurrence, it happens. Therefore, it is a practical, as well as a moral obligation to prepare responses to such events. If you have questions, leave a comment below. Or if you need to keep your comment confidential, email us at results@sylviamarketing.com. That's results@sylviamarketing.com.